Deduct Everything by Eva Rosenberg. Tax columnist from MarketWatch.com. Save money with hundreds of write-offs, legal tax breaks, credits, and loopholes. Chapter 1, Introduction. For more than a decade, I've been known as the tax mama, the Dear Abby of the tax world, fielding questions from Americans and visa holders the world over through my website, www.taxmama.com. It's been a lot of fun. The questions people ask, the glimpses into people's lives, their ideas and perspectives are fascinating. I am privileged to be trusted with such intimate details. Some people have been part of my tax mama's family from the beginning, and some pitch in and help out, providing insights and tips from their own rich store of knowledge. The fact is, the Internal Revenue Code, IRC, is bloated. According to Nina Olson, your national taxpayer advocate, by 2012, the IRC has grown beyond 4 million words, more than double the size of the IRC in 2001. Imagine how much it's grown in the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, as we were about to publish this book, Congress passed the Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes After 2015 on December 18th, 2015. That gave us time to make notes, but the last minute changes before we went to press. See bonus tip number 270 for more details. Absolutely no one can be expected to know everything in the tax code. Not you, not your tax professional, or tax expert. Not the IRS, no one. We've all heard the phrase, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So what's the secret to getting it right? Tax Mama's secret is R&R, reliable sources and research. We know who to ask, we know where to look. My goal is to teach you those two things, who to ask and where to look for accurate answers. I want the tax process to be a fun experience for you, one that challenges you to use your wits to dream up your own ideas on how to beat the system, legally of course. Sometimes your far-fetched ideas might actually turn out to be the perfect solution. In fact, I won my Dow Jones column by trying to sell a far-fetched idea a reader had sent me. An idea that turned out to actually work. More about that in a few last words. Along the way, you'll get tips, ideas, and strategies that you can implement immediately. We'll try to make the book user-friendly as possible with a resources section that will take you directly to the information you need. First, I want to offer you my hard-won insights on truisms to help guide you throughout your tax journey. Tax Mama Tax Truisms. Philosophy about taxes. Lower taxes achieved ethically equals higher profits and increased joy. Mantra about tax return records. Document. In other words, get a backup for everything. Philosophy about people in general. There's never a bad time to be nice to someone. There's never a bad time to say something nice to someone. In fact, say or write something nice to someone right now. Philosophy about dealing with the IRS and state officials. Always be gracious and polite to the IRS, state, and other tax officials. They can either help you or do great harm. While it is illegal to give gifts to government officials, you are welcome to write a letter of accommodation to thank them for helping you. Send it to them with a copy of their superiors. These letters go into the employer's file and help with promotions, commendations, and other advancements. Besides, it always feels good to get a compliment. Philosophy about getting even. What's the best way to get even with someone who is really mean and nasty? Smile and be super nice to them at all times. It would totally confound them. Philosophy about burnout. Sometimes even when you love doing something, too much of a good thing becomes a burden. Take a break. Philosophy about tax filing when you think you have no taxable income. Always file a tax return whether you need to or not. Why? Because tax mama said so. You never know what future trouble you will forestall. If you don't file, you'll find out in about 5 years, and it will be hell. If you do file, you will never know the trouble you've missed. Philosophy about not filing when you have refunds due. Never leave money on the table. Not filing because you have a refund coming and will collect it later is, how can I say that diplomatically? I can't. It's stupid. After 3 years, you lose your refund. I actually had a client who lost more than $100,000 because he didn't file his tax returns for more than 10 years and had 5-figure refunds each year. It can happen to you too. Philosophy about caregivers who don't want to report their income. If a child care facility is cheating on their taxes and lying to the IRS, do you really want them being your children's givers? If they refuse to provide a social security number to you, what will they teach your children about right and wrong? Philosophy about someone who wants to work outside a system. If someone is ripping off their suppliers or marketers, like going around Airbnb rules, or house cleaners who want you to hire them without their agency, can you trust them not to cheat you too? Philosophy about extending credit to someone who doesn't pay proper taxes. If someone has avoided paying the IRS for years, do you really think they will be afraid of your bill collections efforts? Philosophy about finding treasure. Search the unclaimed money site at least once a year. https://www.usagov/unclaimed money. You never know what treasures you will find. I found money for my cousin that had been left unclaimed by her deceased mother. How to use this book. This book is designed to give you some tips you probably won't find anywhere else. It isn't intended to regurgitate the tax laws and deductions that you already know and are, quite frankly, bored with. I try not to use any acronyms in a chapter without explaining it in the chapter. Once explained in the chapter, I will probably use it relentlessly, except one, AGI. You will see this one acronym throughout the book, used mercilessly. It is the heart of the entire income tax computation. It stands for adjusted gross income. This is a specific amount that you will find at the bottom of page 1 of your long form 1040. The same number is found at the top page 2 of the long form 1040. Regardless, if you encounter a term or acronym, this is unexplained, please turn to the glossary at the back of the book. You will find explanations there. Part of Tax Mama's philosophy is, if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't true. So when I give you a tip or guidance that is too good to be believed, you will find a reference in the print book. You will be given an IRS publication number, a code section, a tax court case, or some other useful reference. In the electronic version of the book, you will find links directly to that part of the publication, or links directly to the specific source of that information. You would be wise never to take advice on faith. Please look things up, research them, learn how to read and understand what is happening in your tax life. After all, when you sign a tax return or other tax form, you are attesting that you have read it, understood it, and are responsible for the contents. Naturally, researching, reading, and learning take a lot of time. That's what tax professionals do, often because we think it's fun. But perhaps you are like Isaac Asimov. Remember him? The famous scientist and mathematician best known for having written more than 500 books. He is known for his 3 laws of robotics, and many of his books have become films, including I, Robot by Central Man and his chilling short story, Nightfall. One April, he devoted an entire editorial column in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction to tax season. The good doctor, as Asimov was known, explained why he uses tax professional. I'm sure I could understand income taxes if I put my mind to them. But if I took the time to do that, the world would be deprived of my many books. If a genius like Isaac needed us. Perhaps you do too. Please make notes in the book, dog ear in the pages, or use Post-its, notes all over. When you're done, make a list of all the things you want to discuss further with your tax pro. Get a good tax professional who understands the tax laws related to things you want to accomplish. And most importantly, get a tax pro who will listen to you, as long as you are willing to pay for the time. Now let's get started on your journey to explore the Internal Revenue Code and its related body of law in all its glory. Deduct Everything. Chapter 2. Record, keeping tips, and tools that help maximize deductions. Are you serious about paying less in taxes? I mean, really serious. Believe it or not, you are in control of how much you pay to Uncle Sam, your state, your property tax assessor, city taxes, sale taxes, and all taxes. Look at it this way. You have 3 choices when it comes to taxes. You can be a tax pushover, coasting along and paying out everything that's demanded of you without another thought. You can be a tax vigilante, fighting passionately to eliminate or reduce taxes wherever you can. Or you can be a tax aware, doing the fundamental, logical things needed to keep your taxes legally low without becoming obsessed. This book will provide you with the information you need to fulfill any of those options. You will get some routine ideas, but you will find special gems not found anywhere else. They are legal, but most people have never thought about using these strategies and tips. Tip number 1. The foundation for all tax reporting is good record keeping. The concept is the same whether you're in business or simply dealing with your personal tax situation. In this book, we will focus on your personal records. It's not as hard to do as you think, especially with all the nifty apps available to you. We will talk more about apps in a few minutes. We won't go into detail on the various apps. That would require a whole other book. The tips that follow provide you with the names and URLs of the top apps that can help make lives easier. Some are free, some charge a fee. Tip number 2. One of the big secrets to getting the best tax benefits is having complete records of all your financial transactions. That way, even if you don't know about a tax break in your favor, you can take advantage of it at a tax time because you have the records to prove you spent the money, drove the miles, or took the appropriate action. Tip number 3. Everyone should know at least a little bit more about the household records. I often find that when it comes to married couples, only one person seems to handle all the household finances. It's important for both to be involved and to know where all the files and records are located. After all, heaven forbid, if you should become divorced or widowed, it's important to know how to take over manage the household finances, pay bills, get organized for taxes, and so on. These events generally happen suddenly, with no warning at all. I have seen too many people in these situations become paralyzed and unable to manage. As a result, they stop filing tax returns and get into financial and credit trouble for 5 years or more. Please avoid that, okay? To learn a bit about bookkeeping painlessly and perhaps for free, see the following: the Bean Counter, http://www.dwmbeancounter.com. The Bookkeeper Master, https://www.youtube.com/watch. Tip number 4, income requirements. Here's the information you must store in your records in order to satisfy the dreaded IRS when it comes to income, as it applies to your particular financial situation. We'll discuss many of these in the chapters to come. Pay stubs, especially the final year-to-date pay stub at the end of the year, just in case you end up getting a W-2 or at the end of your job if you leave during the year. W-2s, 1099s, 1098s, K-1s, and all other third-party notifications. Bank and brokerage statements. Keep a paper or electronic copy of each statement for each and every bank account. That includes PayPal, iTex, Bitcoin, and all other online accounts, including investments accounts. Security trades, sales, purchases, short sales, straddles, and so on. You are the best source of information about the basis of your securities. Business income. Do not rely on 1099 MISC. It's your responsibility to keep your own books when you have a business. Just make sure the total of the 1099s you receive is less or equal to the business income you report. Distribution from partnerships, alimony, unemployment, state refunds, disability, and other miscellaneous sources often forgotten, but generally taxable. Rental income on your commercial or residential real estate, or your own home, or rooms in your home via private or commercial sources, or places like Airbnb. Retirement income, Social Security, IRA and retirement account withdrawals. Sales of assets, not all sales are taxable, but all must be reported. Awards, prizes, scholarships. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Not only are these things often taxable, but when children receive them, they might be subject to kiddie tax at the parent's highest tax bracket. Gambling income. Even if you lost the W2G the casino or gambling establishment gave you, the IRS has a copy of it. Barter income. Whether through formal clubs or informal barter, some of the transactions might be taxable, and some of the reported transactions might have deductible offsets. Inheritance and gifts. Often there is no taxable income until the assets you receive are sold or cashed out, but there may be some reporting required. Hobby income. Sources could be eBay, ePage, Etsy, or other hobby income sites. There are special rules for reporting hobby income and deductions. You're going to hate these particular rules. Canceled debt. On credit cards, real estate, and personal debt, I hate to tell you, but this is invisible income, is taxable. Jury pay. It's not much, and you often return it to your employer, but remember to enter it because the IRS knows. Tip number 5, expense requirements. Here's the information you must store in your records in order to satisfy the dreaded IRS when it comes to expenses, as it applies to your particular financial situation. Keep copy of all your canceled checks, even if it's only a PDF copy. If you pay cash for something major, get a receipt and scan it into your online filing system or file it into your paper file. If you pay cash for something minor like parking, valet parking, tips, and so on, keep a small pad of paper handy or one post-it. Write it the date, time, location, and amount on a separate page for each instance. File it or scan it by the end of each day. When it comes to charity, never pay cash. Always use a check, credit card, or online payments like PayPal. Get a formal receipt for all donations of $250 or more. More detail later in Chapter 10. Charity deductions begin at home. Credit card statements are not enough to prove that you have bought it if you want to deduct it. You need the receipt as well. For big ticket items, be sure to keep the receipts. Besides, it helps for returns and warranties. Save your property tax and vehicle registration bills with all the details they show. It doesn't hurt to copy the check or electronic payment and keep it with those receipts. Make a copy of every estimated tax payments you make for the IRS, state, or local taxes. Be sure to show the form number, year, or quarter, and type of tax you have just paid. Keep mileage logs for all driving so you can later deduct medical, charity, volunteer, moving, and or business miles. When it comes to home improvement, always keep copies of all invoices and proofs of payment. The details may come in handy for tax credits, warranties, or reducing profits when you sell the property. If you get tips on your job, keep the details about the tips you get and those you share with other workers at your job. For more details on how to keep records, read Chapter 1 of IRS Publication 17, your federal income tax. How long should you keep records? This is one of the most common questions people ask Tax Mama. Tip number 6, you don't need to keep everything forever, but do keep tax returns forever. People
are often shocked when the IRS or state pops up saying a tax return has never been filed for a given year for 5 or 10 years ago. Without a copy of that tax return, it's nearly impossible to prove that you did file. They don't take up much space. You can even scan them, preferably as PDF files, as long as you are certain that the copies are clean, readable, and retrievable a decade from now. Do you need all backup records that went from the tax return? Not necessarily, but keep those for at least 6 to 7 years. Tip number 7. The IRS is generally only permitted to audit for up to 3 years after you file a tax return. However, if you have undeported gross income, over-reported expenses, or have overstated the basis of assets by 25% or more, the IRS has the right to audit for up to 6 years. If there are criminal omissions or overstatements, the IRS may audit forever, but that should not apply to you. Add 1 or 2 years for state deadlines. What about other records? Tip number 8. Keep the following records until at least 6 years after the contracts or terms expire or assets are sold. Copies of all contracts, warranties, original insurance contracts, and loans. You will need these to ensure that the terms are met in the event you need to file a claim or dispute. The annual invoices aren't enough. The original contracts contain the terms. Purchase documents for real estate and all improvements to the real estate. These will help you when you sell the property or if you want to convert it to a rental. Copies of the original property's purchase and sale, and the tax return reporting of the rollover you will ever rolled over gains. In either tax-free exchanges of the sale of a home before a 1998, if you don't have the records, start digging. Purchase information and all splits of all stocks or securities that you are still holding or sold this year. If you're reinvested dividends, don't forget to add those reinvestments to the cost. If you don't have all the details, but know approximately when you originally bought the stock, www.netbasis.com can reconstruct the entire history of your ownership and compute your basis for a small fee. Deductions for funding a regular individual retirement account, IRA, sometimes though you may after tax contributions, be sure to track those since those funds won't be taxable when you withdraw your money. Also, states may have a different allowable IRA deduction, so you might have a tax basis for the state. More details in Chapter 11. Tip number 9, keep tax preparation records for at least 6 years. That means all the canceled checks, receipts, and records that were directly used in preparation of your tax return. This should include copies of all your notes, work papers, and correspondence with your tax professional tax software company. Keep them with a copy of tax return. So if you're ever audited, everything is right there, right at hand. Tax Mama's record keeping law of the universe. You won't need to look at most of your records for years, but as soon as you throw something out, you will need it desperately. Tip number 7, the benefits of mobile applications. They let you scan documents, checks, and receipts on the spot and let you upload them to your application instantly instead of spending your entire evening tediously entering data into a traditional print or electronic system. Yawn. They generally integrate with other tools to help you organize the data or to have someone else organize the data for you, like shoebox.com. The information can be stored in the cloud, so you don't need to worry about losing the data, fires, messy desk, and so on. When the documents are linked to specific lines in your books and records, you are creating an audit trail. That means if the IRS or state want to see the receipt for a particular deduction or category of deductions, you can just click and give them or print all of the data in the category. Some of them will use GPS to track your mileage for each driving incident, allowing you to categorize the trip as personal, business, medical, moving, or charitable mileage. Others will require manual entries for each trip. Tip number 11, the drawbacks of mobile application. A warning about free apps. Read the contract information carefully. You will learn that you generally don't own your data. They can shut down the app at any time. Think about this. If they aren't getting paid, how can they afford to keep providing your free service? What are they selling to get the funds to keep their doors open? Are they selling your data to advertisers? Is there a paid upgrade? What about the security of your private information, especially when you link these free apps to your bank accounts and brokerage accounts? Do they have access to your financial usernames and passwords? Who owns and or creates the apps? Do they have deep pockets to compensate you or help you in the event of identity theft? Security. Some of the data are often also stored on your mobile devices. You don't generally have it password protected when you use it all day, so the data are at risk. If your device is lost or stolen, you must scramble to change all the passwords on your accounts immediately. Tip number 12. These are some of the top applications available to you for record keeping and mileage, listed in alphabetical order, not by preference. Deduct, http://deductr.com. Expensify, FreshBooks, Metro Mileage app. Tip number 13. These are some of the top personal record keeping systems that provide full bookkeeping, listed in alphabetical order, not by preference. Many apps are designed to integrate with these systems. Mint, Outright, QuickBooks, Quicken, Shoeboxed. Note, of course you can use Excel if you know how, but if you don't already know how to use Excel, an app might be a better choice. Tip number 14. Not everyone lives in the cloud. Some people like the feel, texture, and smell of good old-fashioned paper. Here are some paper alternatives for folks who still like the tangible feel of paper records. Tax Miniminister is a system which sets up monthly envelopes to hold all your receipts, invoices, and documents, and where you can record all money you receive and money that you spend. Of all the paper systems, the Tax Minister is the newest one, designed right around the turn of a century 2000 by Bob Whitaker after he got tired of being audited repeatedly. All the other systems have been used for 50 to 100 years or more. TaxMinimizer.com. Dome Record Books have books for a variety of industries that include bookkeeping, information, bank reconciliation, payroll record, or whatever you need. DomeProductionLine.com/DomeBooks. Wilson Jones has been producing columnar pads on binders in many shapes and sizes since 1893. You can design your own journals and ledgers based on the information you need to track. Pair these pads with loose leaf notebooks instead of tabs, and voila, you have your own customized accounting system. Safeguard 1. Write system combines ledger sheets with carbon-backed checks and receipts. So each time you write a check or make a sale, the entry appears on your ledgers without having to copy it over. This is how I've learned bookkeeping and how to reconcile books. Accordion files can be paired with colorful labels, allowing you to customize your own filing system. Get a file with 24 to 31 pockets to store your receipts, invoices, and so on. You set with 12 pockets to store bank and brokerage statements, or use the 12 pockets as a tickler file to remind you about monthly bills to pay, things to do, appointments or deadlines, or even birthdays and special occasions.